Hello and welcome to this Rain Runners video on what to look for when buying a pair of running shoes. Hi, I'm Toby. Now, with so many different makes and models and different types of running shoes, what should you look for when buying a new pair of running shoes? This is a problem that most runners will have grappled with, and I'm just going to give you an overview of the process rather than recommend a specific pair of shoes. Well, first of all, I would say that most brands' websites and their naming process for shoes are pretty useless and unhelpful. If you go to a company's website, you'll find loads of different running shoes, and it's not at all clear normally how to distinguish between the shoes, why there's so many of them, and why you would choose one shoe over another. And if you look at, for example, Nike's website and look at all their running shoes and the names of them, they all seem to be some sort of combination of Zoom, Air, Free and Fly, with no real indication of what that means. So I certainly wouldn't use a company's website as my first port of call when looking for a new pair of running shoes, nor would I just walk into a shop unprepared with the intention of buying there and then. When buying a new pair of running shoes, you need to be clear about the specific requirements you want from your shoe, whether they're for road running or trails, and you might have a specific price range as well. Obviously you might hone this as you do your research, but I certainly wouldn't want to do this research on the fly in a shop and then end up taking away a pair of running shoes that might end up being the wrong choice. So what should you do first when buying a new pair of running shoes? Well, obviously there are several things you can do, but the first thing I'll mention is the Run Repeat website. I'll put a link below in the description, but basically it's just runrepeat.com. Now Run Repeat is a sort of meta review site, and it has scores out of 100 for running shoes based on multiple reviews. And it also allows you to apply various filters to specify exactly what you want from a running shoe. For example, you might want to specify road shoe under a certain weight for overpronators, but you still need to be careful about some of this. This Reebok Float Ride Run Fast is actually classified as a trail shoe on Run Repeat, but actually it's just a road shoe. It does have, I don't know how well you can see it, but it does have these little lugs on the bottom, but they're very small and it doesn't make it a trail shoe, and it is mainly used for road running. So I tend not to use the road shoe filter. Most shoes on Run Repeat are actually road shoes anyway, so if you just leave that off when looking for road shoes, then it doesn't take much longer just to ignore the trail shoes. Whereas if I was looking for trail shoes, I probably would use the filter, because you'd have to go scroll through many different road shoes to actually find any trail shoes. And I've never found any errors that way round. If you use a filter to filter out road shoes, I've never seen it also filter out trail shoes as well. And weight is obviously an important one. The lighter the shoe, the faster you go. There's one study that suggests that 1 ounce on your running shoes makes a difference of 0.83 seconds per mile. So to put that in metric, 100 grams would make about 3 seconds difference per mile. So over the park run distance, an extra 100 grams could add 10 seconds to your park run time. And apparently that is total weight rather than weight per shoe. So if you're wearing a pair of 300 gram shoes as opposed to a pair of 200 gram shoes, that's 200 grams difference in total. So that could add 20 seconds to your park run time. So the weight is important, it can make a lot of difference. But as I say, you have to be a bit careful, because Run Repeat seems to just take the manufacturer's stated weight for the shoes rather than giving an independent measure. And some of the manufacturers can be a little bit sneaky about this, and there's no standard size of shoe that the weight is taken from. For example, these shoes supposedly weigh 212 grams. They're even called the Inov-8 X-Talon 212 Classic. But I weighed this shoe and it was actually over 300 grams. Now I went to the Inov-8 website and it actually does say that the 212 grams is for a UK size 4.5, and this is a size 9. But even so, size 4.5 is very small and nowhere near the average, even for a woman. So it does seem a bit sneaky and dishonest to use that as the weight, and even to call the shoe the 212, as if it's a big selling point, it's a lightweight shoe. This is not a lightweight shoe, it weighs 300 grams for a size 9. So there's no way I'll be buying another pair of these. And I had to look at some of the other shoes on the Inov-8 website, and while they gave the weight in grams, they didn't actually specify the size that they're for. So I would have no idea whether they would be dishonest like this one, or whether the size would be an adult size for that weight. Who knows, but I don't think I'll be buying from Inov-8 again unless they change their ways. One way of gauging whether the weight on the Run Repeat website is likely to be accurate is if it gives a separate weight for men's and women's. If so, it's likely to be a more representative weight for a man's size and a woman's size, whereas a lot of shoes just have one weight for both men and women's, and it's likely that it will be a smaller size rather than a larger size if they've done that. But a good review, a good shoe review website should actually independently weigh the shoes. One thing you can do is take your own portable electronic scales into a running shoe shop and weigh the shoes that you try on. And if you then compare the weight that you found with the stated weight from the manufacturer on the website, you might be able to spot a pattern with each manufacturer to see whether they overestimate or underestimate the weight. And if you're having your shoes sent out to you, don't be afraid to send them back if you think they're bending the truth when it comes to the weight. Another filter that I mentioned on the Run Repeat website is shoes for overpronators. Now, overpronating is when you put too much weight on the inside of your foot. Underpronating or oversupinating is when you put too much weight on the outside of the foot. But they don't have a filter for that. I think maybe overpronation is more common than underpronation. And sometimes if you go into a shop looking for running shoes, they'll actually put you on a treadmill and watch how you run to see if you are overpronating so that they can sell you the right type of shoe. However, the evidence seems to point towards these corrective shoes of being of no benefit. There was a study done by Benno Nigg, and I'll put a link in the description below, and this study suggests that overpronating does not cause extra injuries, and wearing shoes to correct it does not reduce injuries. He also found that the best way to find a running shoe to reduce injuries is actually just to find one that's most comfortable for you to wear. And bearing that in mind, and also the first do no harm approach, I would actually start off trying neutral shoes and only move on to corrective shoes if you really can't get on with them. And I certainly wouldn't go into a shoe shop and take advice on buying an overpriced, over-engineered shoe from someone that's actually trying to sell you that shoe. Another thing to look at is heel to toe drop. Most shoes will come with a certain amount of heel to toe drop where the heel is higher than the front of the foot. You'll get a lot of minimal shoes that have basically no cushioning, so they would obviously have zero drop. But most cushioned shoes will have a higher back than front. Now, I would only recommend trying out minimal shoes or shoes with a zero heel to toe drop if you're already an experienced runner. Most runners run with a heel strike, and in that case it is best to have a shoe with a heel to toe drop. And if you look at the latest Nike shoes that Eliud Kipchoge and Mo Farah wear, they are cushioned shoes with a decent heel to toe drop. The professional runners don't tend to run in minimal shoes. So the other thing about the Run Repeat site is the scores out of 100. Now they're obviously a good indication of how good a shoe might be, but I wouldn't take the scores as gospel. I don't know exactly how the scores are calculated, but in any case it's always worth checking out other reviews for shoes if you're considering buying a pair of shoes. You shouldn't go to one website and say, oh, it's got a score of 95, so they must be a good shoe. Always check out independent reviews. And the other thing is, if you know other runners, you can ask them what they like about certain shoes and what shoes they recommend. I normally buy shoes online because I find that the options are normally more limited in shops. But it's always worth going to shops to try shoes on, to see what to expect generally from a pair of running shoes from each brand. And also you might pick up a bargain. But I do find when you're in a shop, it's often unclear where a shoe fits in the general range and why you should pick one shoe over another. So I always have my phone with me in the shop so I can look up information online about a pair of shoes if I like them. I certainly wouldn't buy them just on the basis of finding them in a shop. And as I said earlier, if you've got some electronic scales, bring them with you too. But by all means buy a pair of shoes in a running shop, but just make sure you know what you're buying within the wider world of running shoes. And don't buy a pair just because a salesman told you to. But as I say, you might pick up a bargain, but certainly do some online research before you actually buy a pair. And similarly, as I mentioned earlier, running manufacturers' own websites. I find them a bit hard to navigate sometimes. Obviously it depends on a particular brand, but it does help to do some research first so that when you're looking at shoes, you understand where they fit in the general landscape of running shoes. And certainly if you find your favourite pair on a particular website, check it out elsewhere from independent reviews and on Run Repeat as well. Finally, I want to talk to you a bit about energy return in shoes. A few years ago there was a bit of debate about this. Some shoes claim to give better energy return than others. So each time you take a step, less energy is lost, so your running would be more efficient, and ultimately you'd run faster over a certain distance. And there was some debate about whether it really made any difference in practice. But you might have seen now that the latest generation of Nike shoes seems to have settled the debate. They do seem to make a difference. We've got the Nike 4%, the Next Percents and the Alpha Flies, and all the top runners seem to run with these shoes now, and the times do seem to be improving. As well as being light and with a midsole made with a high energy return foam, they also have a carbon plate which acts as a sort of spring, which gives even better energy return and more efficiency. So do we now all need these shoes to keep up with everyone else? Because these shoes are still very expensive. Well, these shoes aren't going to make a slow runner suddenly a fast runner. They can only make a certain amount of difference. So really it will be up to you to decide whether you think the difference it will be enough to make it worth spending the extra money. But other manufacturers now are in the carbon plate game. It's no longer just a Nike monopoly. So hopefully this will over time bring prices down. So if you do want one of these super duper new energy return shoes, it might even be worth waiting a year or two to see if prices come down further before you buy one. Okay, so that just about wraps it up from me. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you've been able to find something useful in it.